One of the realities of life and relationships is that we may become overtaken by our emotions. And sometimes that emotion is anger. There is something that happens that causes us to be angry, and we then express that anger toward the person that we care about, which then causes a reaction by that person. And the result may be destructive to the relationship, or it could also be constructive to the relationship. The Mea Shiloach suggests that we learn a tremendous lesson from the beginning of this week's Parsha. At the end of last week's Parsha, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is told by Moshe Rabbeinu, Ribbonu Shalom, how in the world do you do this to Klal Yisrael? And why did you send me if the people don't listen to me, if Paro doesn't listen to me? And why do these people have to suffer? So HaKadosh Baruch Hu becomes angry with Moshe, even though HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves Moshe. And the Pasuk says in the beginning of our Parsha, Vayedaber, and the language of Daber is strong. Elokim, the name of Hashem, which is the Midas Hadin, the attribute of judgment. So Hashem speaks to Moshe in a harsh way. As Rashi and other Mefarshim explain, HaKadosh Baruch Hu took Moshe to task. And he said, Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, no one ever questioned me. And here Moshe's questioning me? But something shifts, something changes immediately within that first pasuk. All of a sudden we go from the language of Daber, speaking harshly, to Vayomer Elov, that Hashem speaks to Moshe, says to Moshe, with the word Vayomer, the Shoresh Amar, being Beloshon Raka, softly. Elov, he speaks to him and he says, Ani Hashem, I am Hashem, with the attribute of Rachamim. What shifted? What took place here? So the Mea Shiloach explains as follows, that when a person becomes angry at someone that they care about, so they end up seeing the reaction of the person to their anger. And if the person remains aloof and sort of dismisses their anger, then the person who's angry only becomes more angry. But if they end up seeing that the person who they are angry at almost becomes humble and is touched emotionally by seeing their anger, they realize, they stop and they say, whoa, I can't believe how angry I acted. When they see the person they care about's reaction and they see their emotional connection, all of a sudden they soften and they recognize, they realize, they say to themselves, my goodness, why was I so angry? Why was I so upset? Look what I did. I could have caused damage here to our relationship. And they end up talking and they end up connecting, and instead of anger being something which causes destruction to a relationship, the end result could be constructive to the relationship. Because the person who that the individual was angry at says, listen, when you act this way, I don't know what to do because I can't communicate with you. And the person who was angry realizes, what did I do? I lost myself. And all of a sudden it becomes this idea of compassion, which is introduced into the conversation and into the relationship. And so the Mea Shiloach suggests we learn this from the interaction between Moshe Rabbeinu and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu at first is angry at Moshe, but right away he shifts when he sees that Moshe is listening, when he sees that Moshe understands his pain, when he sees that Moshe understands his disappointment. All of a sudden, HaKadosh Baruch Hu shifts to saying, Vayomer, Ani Hashem, with mercy. May we be zoche, that if it comes to a time where we have this difficult moment in any relationship, that we learn from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we learn from Moshe Rabbeinu, to be able to pay attention to the emotion, to be able to understand what is really happening at the core of our connection, so that we are not aloof to each other, and at the same time we don't express anger to each other, but we are able to find compassion for each other. And in doing so, we'll be able to build and be constructive within our relationship. Thank you for listening, and have a good Shabbos.